Morning at the Midge bend did not feel like victory. It felt like a mouth that had bitten hard and was now tasting what it had chewed. I woke with Kadan's seat still under my skin like a saddle left on too long, sweat stiff, useful, beginning to stink of someone else's long day. The second skin had thinned overnight the way hot iron thins toward grey. Still shape, less fire. That should have been relief. It was not. Thinning is when patterns get clever. Fire announces itself. Ash sneaks into bread. Midges found my eyelids before I found my knife. Fair rent for ground that maps hate. I slapped my face, tasted salt, and named myself once under breath so the day would start with a tenant, not a shrine. Temur. Still expensive, still necessary to a knot of living names that snored and cursed and counted barley within rope reach. Sanai was already boiling paste water, hips stiff, eyes sharper than sleep. She flicked a look at my hands before she looked at my face. Hands tell the truth earlier. Mine were quiet. Good. Quiet hands can still become other men's tools if you stop watching the wrists. Your mouth is plain, she said. Keep it. Guests smell theatre. I nodded and took the cup she pushed at me. Salt broth again. I promised mourning properly and paid her from the small sack Batu guarded like a jealous uncle. Partnership holds on payments, not speeches. Oren sat by almost no smoke with the fox fur strip crooked and a face that had aged a season in 8 days. A man trying to turn cousins and widows into a shape that winter would not simply erase. He looked at me the way men look at weather that has started answering back. Gathering in 3 days if Toggle did not lie, Oren said. South fold under the cracked willow branch. Small, he says. Small means enough mouths to make spit into law and not enough spears to make law into a cage. Maybe. Maybe is where thin camps live, I said. Maybe is also where devils get branded, Harker muttered from the rope line, not looking up from a bridle splice. Harker's deliberate wakefulness had become a habit the whole camp borrowed. I approved habits that did not need my name to function. Naran appeared with the mute girl half a step behind, her fingers hooked in his sleeve the way a dragonfly hooks a reed. He had the bone chime in his other hand, checking the cord for fray. Boys who survive raids become inspectors of small things. Small things keep large funerals unpaid. You dreamed wrong again, Naran said, not a question. I dreamed of roads, I said. Roads are allowed. Your feet moved, he said, like gallop without horse. I said, Temur. You bit your wrist. I turned the wrist. Old calendar mark, scabbed, and a fresher crescent where teeth had found the same border in sleep. Proof that the doors still opened both ways, and that sleep was a poor guard. I let him see it. Hiding the calendar from the boy who threw the rope word would be vanity dressed as protection. Good, I said. Keep saying it if the feet go without asking. He nodded, older again by a blink, and led the mute girl toward the reed path drill. The girl hummed, progress without words. I felt the second skin sneer at soft mornings and nailed the sneer with the widow under stones, with Sarnai's ear flick, with Orun's ridiculous fur. Nails. Rune for Temur. Batu came in from Eastwatch, humming despite orders against humming on that seam. He stopped when he saw my face. Empty, he said. Empty like a lie people tell when they want breakfast. Dust far. Could be carts, could be imagination doing free scouting. Mark both, I said. Imagination lies. Carts keep schedules. Schedules grow teeth when clerks get bored. The hip-smashed man, less smashed now and more bitterly upright, chopped reed for windbreaks and muttered numbers under breath, counting as religion. He glanced at me once and away, the way you glance at a fire you need and do not trust not to take the felt. The hatchet woman sat hobbled in tent shadow. Dust still lived in her braid. Her smile still had no kindness. Captain's seat fading, she said. I can smell it. You walk like a man who borrowed a better spine and is returning it late with interest. Interest is my business, I said. Interest is everyone's business when the spine starts choosing targets, she said. Kadan mare teeth had feuds the way dogs have fleas. Some still hop. If you wear him to a gathering of soft southern cousins, he may remember which faces owed him blood. Dead men are rude guests. They finish conversations without asking who is hosting. I filed that without thanking her. Filing is not trust. Trust is a heavier coin. I walked the picket line and let the thinning skin flicker through my ankles when a horse stamped, gallop pattern like a ghost of weather. I let it rise and did not mount it. Warning torch. I did not look away. Warnings that flatter are perfume. Warnings that scare might be teachers. East held Empire schedule and lacquered questions. South held Urke's middle and the kill him edge, and a cracked willow where spit would become symbol. Horizon still teeth. Saying again is how you keep weather from becoming surprise. Council of the Willing happened with midges as witnesses. I laid out plain meat. We go small. We do not sell the hatchet woman. We do not speak stone dog miracles. We do not let boys become interesting on purpose. If middle feeds us winter barley, we count the hooks in the grain before we chew. Orun almost smiled. He put the fox fur straight as if posture could become policy. And if your face goes wrong, Sarnai said, looking only at me, then someone says Temur, and someone else hits me, I said. Hard. Prefer the ear. Ears remember. Naran raised a hand. I can hit, he offered. You can say the name, I said. Hitting is Harka's joy if joy is allowed. Harka grunted, which meant acceptance of ugly duty. We packed without theatre. The tooth-string bouquet stayed wrapped in my own felt, not worn like a trophy. I saddled the dark mare for the road and led the dun. Leading is a kind of leash on memory. Before we left, I walked the rise once more and looked east until my eyes watered. Far dust could have been carts on a tribute logic line. Pressure without face. My name was becoming writable. Writable names get collected by desks. I bit the wrist calendar lightly, not enough to bleed fresh, enough to taste iron border. Second skin thinning, gathering waiting, pattern patient as a snake in cooling dust. I went down to the living and put my shoulder under a load that was only weight, not legend, and for a few honest breaths that was enough to keep the wardrobe from choosing the day before I did. By the second morning on the south track, the second skim had become a rumor inside my tendons. Rumor is worse than occupation. Occupation you can fight with names and bites and the dull hammer of laws. Rumor waits until you are laughing at Batu's midge welts and then turns the laugh into Kadan's delight at soft men who think welts are the worst the grass offers. I caught the delight like a thief mid-pocket and crushed it with the image of the mute girl humming near pots. The delight starved without dying. Good enough. Good enough is the only lasting truce with borrowed dead. We moved as a wound that had learned to walk. Orun at the thought of the front, fox fur bouncing. Sarnai counting heads without moving lips. Naran and the mute girl in the middle with small loads that keep hands too busy for panic. Harka and I sharing rear and flank the way men share a blanket in frost. Not love, survival arithmetic. The hatchet woman hobbled on a long lead that Batu held with theatrical disgust and secret attention. Prisoners who talk are maps. Maps that hate you still show rivers. I rode the dark mare and felt the thinning seat try to correct my hips every third stride. Sometimes I let the correction stand if it saved the mare's knees on bad ground. Sometimes I refused it on purpose on good ground to prove the refusal still worked. Taking off is a muscle. Muscles need ugly practice, not poetry. Twice before midday, the skin pushed a finishing pattern at nothing. My heels twitched toward a charge that would have made us the insult instead of the buffer. I stepped off the mare entirely and walked 10 breaths leading her while the dun followed like a conscience with hooves. Batu watched, too honest to pretend he had not. You sick? He asked. I am practicing not being a door that swings on old hinges, I said. That is a long way to say yes, he said, and offered water. I drank. Ordinary. Ordinary is the home skin's rent. Rent was late. I paid what I could in plain gestures. At a shallow braid of water, Sarnai made us halt for the hit-bitter man's legs and for widows who would not say they needed rest until someone else rested first. Bodies keep receipts. Sarnai's paste had a smell like punishment and mercy braided. Your eyes went long toward that dust, she said quietly, not for the circle. Kadan hated screenwriters and clerks' boards, I said. Hate leaks. Then plug it, she said. I do not sew leaks with thread. I sew them with refusal. She flicked my ear hard enough to make the receipt real. Pain that comes from living names is better than pain that comes from dead captains rehearsing glory. Naran brought me a strip of dried fish like a tax paid upward. I paid tax back by listening to his scatterpath recitation until he got every reed fork right. The mute girl tapped twice on his wrist when he erred, her own language growing teeth, treaties in small coins. The hatchet woman drank when allowed and spoke when she could make the words cost us something. Kadan's worst feud on this belt was not Empire, she said, almost bored. Empire was harvest. In private, he kept a string of names. Some of those names breed south. Gatherings are where bloodlines stand still long enough to be counted. Orun overheard enough to go the color of old tallow. He looked at me as if I had personally invited a ghost to dinner. We can turn west, he offered, weak already knowing west was starvation theater. We can go and keep my hands busy with wood and water, I said. Busy hands are harder for dead men to steer. If a face from his string appears, someone says my name and someone hits me and I leave the circle before spit becomes blood. Harker grunted. Plan ugly enough to be real. We made a dry camp short of the true gathering fold because arriving exhausted makes you look like prey or like petitioners, and both look set prices against you. Almost no smoke, horses low, watches stacked. I took first dark shift and walked with the second skin flickering like heat off day ground. Under stars I practiced emptying, not the full tear that leaves you hollow enough to drink any death, the controlled pour, surgical, costly. My nose bled thin from the effort, as if the body charged a toll for rearranging tenants. Naran, near on purpose, whispered Temur once at the end. Testing rope. Here, I said, still. He slept after that like a boy who had checked a knot. Near middle night, the east seam sent a quiet runner, the humming cousin who had learned not to hum. He had seen two lacquered riders far out reading a dry wash with sticks and a board again. Parallel logic to the tribute road, even off its dust. Unhurried. They did not turn toward our track. Schedule confidence. Worse than hunt hunger. I took the news without letting the hollow turn it into an immediate third skin fantasy. Hunt fantasy would put me alone on their trail looking for a neat officer to wear. Laws, camp, timing. The officer would keep. The camp might not if every worthy shadow became tonight's meal. Orun wanted to double the south pace and get under clan eyes faster, as if clan eyes were walls. Third law held. Words the grass can repeat become arrows in other mouths. Before sleep, I sat with the wrapped tooth-string case and did not open it. I told the thinning skin the gathering rules out loud, dull as counting stakes. No finishing old feuds, no shooting soft mouths for volume, no wearing delight that is not mine when children can see. Leave room. The skin did not agree. Agreement is not required. Leashes are. I lay down in horse smell and reed rot and the faint sweet of paste. Sleep came as truce. In the truce, Kadan's mouth scar tried to smile on my face at a circle of southern cousins drinking under a willow. I tore the smile off with a wrist bite that woke me enough to taste blood and know it mine. Calendar, border, proof. Thinning second seat, thickening world, pattern learning the gaps in my practice the way water learns cracks in felt. I whispered living names until the gaps filled with weight. Sarnai, Naran, Orun, Batu, Harker, mute girl, hit bitter counter, widows with grain math, dark mare, even the hatchet woman's ugly map. Names are nails. Nails hold when rumor tries to become hand. Dawn would put us on the last stretch to cracked willow country. I intended to arrive as Temur, who could still take a seat off and put a seat on without becoming only a coat rack of the dead. Intending is not doing. Doing would be measured in whether anyone I loved bled from a pattern that was not born in my bones. The last stretch to the cracked willow was a road only in the way a scar is a map. You follow it because the skin remembers injury better than grass remembers peace. We came into country with more horse dung than midges, and more distant felt smoke than pure horizon. That meant people. People meant prices. Prices meant smiles that were inventory. Orun straightened his fox fur until it looked like a small animal deciding to be a flag. I hated flags and understood them. Thin camps without any cloth get priced as ownerless meat. Toggle found us an hour before true gathering sight, as if he had been born from the fold of a hill for the purpose of being offended by our dust. Thinner than Irka, married into the line, eyes always on horse legs and women's grain measures. Practical spy. He looked us over and counted without moving his lips the way Sanai did. 2 counters recognizing each other makes a cold little treaty. You are late for early and early for late, Toggle said. Good. Arriving exactly when expected is how ambushes set clocks. We are not expected as heroes, I said. You are expected as a problem that chose a hook it can see, he said. Iaka holds middle if you stand under the branch and spit the easy swear. Kill him Edge wants a cleaner story. Devil, burn, forget. Middle is uglier and keeps more widows breathing. Try not to make middle look stupid. How would I do that? Batu asked, already offended on my behalf. By letting your face go wrong in front of men who drink for courage, Toggle said, looking at me, not Batu. By shooting a guest because a dead captain hated his grandfather. By being interesting. Interesting is heat. Heat draws knives and priests. I have been practicing boring, I said. Practice harder, Toggle said, and turned his horse to lead us in on a path that avoided the main dust, so our entry would look like caution instead of parade. Caution is a kind of manners. Manners are weapons that do not need string wax. The gathering ground opened as a shallow bowl with a cracked willow at the high lip, branch marks hanging like dried laws. Bone, cloth strips, 1 bronze ring green with age. Men laughed too loud near jars. The whole thing was a market of belonging, with spears leaned polite against felt walls. My second skin woke hard at the smell of so many seats and so much loose hierarchy. Kadan had loved gatherings the way wolves love winter yards, counting, choosing, deciding which throat was fat. Trauma bleed came as a sneer so clean it almost felt like my own thought. Soft, loud, drunk already, easy. I stepped down from the mare before the sneer could use my mouth and put my palm on her neck until horse heat crowded out hierarchy joy. Naran appeared at my elbow without being called, rope word ready in his throat like an arrow on string. Temur, he said softly, not because I had gone wrong yet, because prevention is cheaper than cure. Here, I answered, and let him hear it. You look less like a storm and more like a man who slept next to one, Urke said. Storms pass, I said. Men file claims. He almost laughed real. Good. Claims I understand. Come, drink weak beer. Meet mouths. Do not meet every eye like a jewel. Jewels at gatherings become songs. Songs become reasons for larger jaws to visit your river. We were given a rope slot on the outer ring, which is both insult and mercy. Outer means less honor. Harker checked stakes as if he owned the bowl. The hatchet woman stayed hooded and hobbled behind our felt, a problem we had not solved and would not display. I walked with Urke along the branch line because refusing would paint me brighter than agreeing. The second skin wanted me to walk like a captain taking inventory. I walked like a rear dog with sore feet. Better to let them see tired truth and keep the outrageous part inside. There, Urke said, tipping his chin at a knot of riders under a blue cloth strip. Rivermark cousins, old blood. They smile at everyone. Smiles are their armor. Your mare-teeth captain smiled at them once in a piece that did not reach his private string. Do not stare. Staring is a finger on a bruise. I did not stare. My fingers found my knife without drama. I opened them on my belt and left them empty. Name the law, I told myself. Dull. Do not let a skin finish its old feuds with my hands. The law held by a hair, and the hair was Naran's earlier Temur still vibrating in my ear like a struck wire. Urke missed none of the hand drama. He spoke without looking at me. If you are wearing dead men, learn the taking off in public weather, not only in Midge dark. I burned a shaman who could not. Burning is help when nothing else is left. I would rather not help you that way. You are useful ugly. Useful ugly keeps my middle fed with options. I am practicing, I said. Practice where I can see failure before it becomes a corpse, he said, and moved on to greet someone with more horses than we would ever own. Orun found me after and whispered like a man passing a hot coal. They will call you at sundown for the easy swear. Stand, spit, do not decorate. Decorated oaths get remembered as ambitions. I nodded. Ambition is a word clerks love. Clerks was still east, but stories ride faster than lacquered for. Near the beer jars, a young rider from some branch I did not own tried to bump my shoulder to see if the stone dog would snarl. Testing. I stepped aside as if clumsy and let him stumble into his own friend's laughter. Clumsy is a mask. Masks work if you can stand the taste. Sanai appeared with paste for a child's scraped knee that was not ours, and thus brought us a widow's nod from another rope line. Practical love scales. I watched her hands, living hands, and used them as nails against the skin's rising appetite for hierarchy games. Evening leaned in. Jars emptied. Voices rose. Someone began a drum that was mostly a pot with ambition. The cracked willow held its dried laws and did not care who bled under them. I checked the dark mare, the dun, the bone chime Naran had hung on our outer stake anyway, superstition braided with drill. I bit the wrist calendar once, light. Branch-marked road had delivered us into a bowl full of hooks, smiles, old bruises, and one thinning second seat that had begun to recognize faces from a dead man's private string. Sundown would ask for spit. Night might ask for blood. I intended to pay the first and starve the second. Intention is a leash only if your hands stay yours when the drum gets loud. Gatherings pretend to be soft. The eyes never are. Before sundown call, I did the ugly work of being seen without becoming a show. I mended a rain in public. I hauled water. I let Batu lose a friendly wrestle to a thicker cousin and laughed at the right time with a mouth that stayed mine. Soft camp tasks. Hard eyes watched from every shade cloth to price whether my softness was injury, strategy, or the slack skin of a man about to split open and spill dead captains onto their beer. Urke's middle needed me boring. The kill him edge needed me monstrous. I aimed at boring and felt the second skin pace like a hound that smells both kitchens and blood and cannot decide which door is dinner. A woman with river mark blue at her throat passed our rope and glanced at the dun horse. Recognition without name. The dun had been Kadan's before he was dirt. Horses carry stories in their scars and their way of holding a hip. She looked from dun to me, and her face closed like a gate that has seen flood. Sanai saw the gate close and moved to intercept with a question about barley weevils, widow diplomacy, the kind that forces talk about grain instead of ghosts. I blessed her without words and took the dun farther into our slot, as if fussing with pickets. Fuss is camouflage. The hatchet woman, hood still on, spoke from shadow just loud enough for me. That woman buried a cousin Kadan took in a night that peace later painted over, she said. Paint cracks. You brought a painted horse into a family that remembers underpaint. Clever is not the word. I did not answer. Answers become quotes. Quotes become evidence. Naran practiced saying my name in different tones under his breath. Warning, ordinary, joke, sleep rope. I told him ordinary was the one I needed most in crowds. Warning tones make crowds lean in. Crowds that lean in become witnesses. Witnesses become songs. Songs become hunters. Orun sat with Irke and two other elders under a strip of cloth that had once been white. Their hands moved in small, agreeing motions. Politics looks like digestion if you do not listen. Hook with visible barb. Choose the hook you can see, Toggle had said. I was choosing. Choosing still felt like being chosen. Near the cracked willow, a boy from another knot tried to touch the bronze ring mark and got his hand slapped by a grandmother with authority older than any captain. Law. Living law. I preferred it to wardrobe law even when living law was a slap. Slaps leave cheeks. Wardrobes leave tenons. Toggle drifted past with a cup and no drinking in his eyes. Empire Screen asked again, 2 valleys east, he said, as if commenting on weather. Devil on dark mare. Cousins sold them a widow spirit and a direction that leads into goat thorns. Ink is muddy. Mud dries. When it dries, they will want a cleaner noun than spirit. Nouns like man. Nouns like camp. Nouns like you. How long, I asked. Days if the thorns entertain them. Less if a clerk gets ambitious, Toggle said. Stand tonight. Spit. Look dull. Tomorrow leave duller. If you must be a devil on someone else's map square. He drifted on. Practical spies do not linger like friends. Lingering is a price. The second skin flared without a fight in front of it, pure trauma bleed. Kadan's urge to ride east now, find the lacquered boardmen, shoot the ambition out of a clerk's throat, wear whatever neatness came with the officer if the kill proved worthy. My body half rose. Harker's hand landed on my shoulder like a peg mallet, not gentle. "Sit," Harker said. "Your eyes went road." I sat, breathed, named living names until the eastward lean lay down. Sarnai's glance said she had seen. Naran's mouth shaped Temur without sound. Tax paid. I nodded thanks. I would not speak loud enough to make a story. Batu returned from wrestling survey bruised and cheerful. "Meet at sundown if you swear pretty," he reported. Also, a man from Rivermark side asked if our dun was stolen. I said found after a fight. True enough to walk. He smiled like a knife under cloth. "True enough is how wars start," I said. "True enough is how we eat tonight," Batu said. And for once I did not correct him, because hunger is also a law. I walked the outer ring once with the dark mare as if cooling her, actually cooling me. Each Rivermark face the skin tried to hang a string name on I refused to learn. Learning can become targeting. Targeting is how old feuds finish through new fingers. Second law is logistics, not poetry. At our felt, the mute girl had arranged 3 stones in a line and was humming a thin square of sound that might have been a door or a game. I sat and hummed a scrap back. She corrected my pitch with a frown. Even treaties have standards. I fixed the pitch. She accepted. For a few breaths I was only a man failing music under a girl's rule. Not a wardrobe, not a buffer, not a noun drying in empire ink. Orun came back from elder digestion with fox fur damp at the edges from other men's jar generosity. "Sundown," he said. "You stand. I stand near. If your mouth goes wrong, I will cough like death. If your hands go wrong, Harker hits. If your feet go wrong, the boy says the rope word. We have a net. Try not to need the net. Nets seem too clearly become entertainment." I looked at the net of living names and felt something like fear that was not the hollow's fear. The hollow fears emptiness. I feared fullness that was not mine, using my net as a weapon against itself. "I will spit plain," I said. "Spit plain," Orun said, and squeezed my arm with a father's clumsiness he had not earned and I had not refused. Sundown light went copper. The pot drum found a rhythm. Ieke's voice rose, broad and carrying, inviting small business under the branch. Herds not raided, news shared, winter math begun, one rear dog from a thin river bend to stand and make soft meat into a symbol, so middle could starve the kill him edge for a season. Hard eyes turned toward our outer rope like spears that had learned manners. I stood, smoothed my face plain, felt the second skin smile with Kadan's mouth scar under my own mouth, and bit the inside of my cheek until blood salted the smile dead. Soft camp, hard eyes. The walk to the cracked willow was short and longer than the running ground where I had killed a captain. Every step the pattern tried to measure the crowd for weakness. Every step I measured the pattern for leash. One of us would arrive at the branch still in charge. I intended it to be the man the boy could still name without flinching. Under the cracked willow, the air was beer, horse, old bronze, and the sweet grease of meat that had been promised beyond what the pots could honestly give. Gathering smoke makes every face softer and every intention louder. Iake spoke first because Middle needs a mouth that sounds like weather instead of a knife. He named the easy piece. No raiding marked herds along this belt for the season. News of empire dust and tooth clans carried within a day of seeing. Winter coat share for buffer camps that kept their scrapes on the outer grass where larger herds preferred not to sleep. He did not say devil. He did not say burn. He said usefulness in the tone men use for tools that still cut. Orun stood beside me, trying not to look like a man whose entire politics were a fox fur strip and a rear dog with a dangerous reputation. He failed and succeeded at once. Failure is human. Human is what Middle sells against monsters. When they called me forward, I walked without Kadan's inventory stride. Sore feet, plain knife, face empty of delight. The bronze ring mark hung at eye level, green eye of old agreements. Cloth strips moved in a wind that smelled of jar spills. Somewhere a child cried and was hushed too hard. Living law is never clean. Irke asked if I would swear for my knot of leftovers not to raid clan herds under branch mark. I will not raid your marked herds, I said. We are thin. Thin men who raid marked herds are suicides with extra steps. I will send news of dust if dust has brains. I will not sell you men I cannot feed. I will not kneel a title I cannot carry without becoming furniture. A low ripple of laughter, not all kind. Good. Laughter breaks worship. Worship is how kill him edges get sermons. Irke's eyes said, enough decoration, spit the core. I spit on the ground under the bronze ring, not on the ring, because bronze remembers better than dirt, and I did not want my spit to become a relic. The act was ugly and clear. Orun spat after, elder seal. 2 other mouths spat to make it plural. Plural is harder to murder quietly. Weak beer found my hand. I nailed the hate with Naran's face at the crowd edge, mouth ready, and with Sarnai's ear flick memory, and with the mute girl's pitch correction. Nails holding. You ride a captain's horse, Flint Eyes said. Not quite accusation, not quite greeting. I ride a horse that outlived a captain, I said. Horses are wiser about endings. Kadan Mareteeth took my sister's boy in a peace year, Flint Eyes said. Still soft for the crowd, hard under. Peace painted it accident. We swallowed paint. Paint is bitter twice when the painter's horse stands in our beer smell. Orun started to speak fox fur words. I stepped on his foot lightly. My mess, my mouth. I did not come to reopen graves, I said. I came to keep new ones from opening on this belt, if middle has barley and sense. If your grief needs a throat, take it to the grass where Mareteeth leftovers still ride. Do not take it through me unless you want a fight that makes Empire clerks write faster. Flint Eyes smiled without teeth showing. Careful answer. Careful men live long enough to become problems later. Later is acceptable. Tonight is spit and smoke. He drank. The woman did not. She watched my face for Kadan's delight and found only Temur's fatigue and a cheek still cut from the inside by my own teeth. She looked slightly cheated of a simpler hate. I could not help her. Simpler hate is a luxury of people who do not wear other men's wars. Irke steered conversation toward winter roots, and which folds held water when wind went mean. Boring talk, sacred talk. I stayed boring until the clapping moved to another knot and another small swear about a stolen ram. Gatherings are many tiny wars under one willow. I stepped back toward our outer rope as soon as manners allowed. The second skin tugged toward the rivermark knot, like a dog on a scent string. I poured the tug onto the grass in my mind, named it Kadan, named it feud, named it not mine, left it. Nosebleed thin again, toll. Naran fell into step. You did not go wrong, he said, half disappointed to have unused heroism. Wrong is patient, I said. Stay near after dark. Patient things like drums and jars. Sanai handed me paste without asking. For the cheek, she said. Inside cuts rot if you are proud. I took it. Bitter, fair. Night-gathering smoke thickened. Pots became drums more honestly. Someone sang a raiding song with the names filed off to keep peace. Filed names are still shapes. The skin tried to fill the shapes with Kadan's private string. I recited living names against it until my jaw ached. Harker took first watch on our outer stake without being asked. Batu found meat and shared it like a man investing in loyalty. Orun drank more than I liked and laughed at Irke's jokes with the desperation of a man who wants belonging more than he wants dignity. I did not shame him. Belonging hunger is also a hollow. I walked the mare in cool air beyond the bowl lip and saw, far east, a dust that might have been nothing and might have been schedule. Pressure. Always pressure. The hollow leaned. I pushed it back with the bronze ring image and spit in dirt and the boys' ordinary tone practice. When I returned, Toggle was at our rope again, face tighter. South Fringe scouts saw riders who keep intervals, he said. Not many. Toothstring glitter possible. Could be curiosity. Could be the braid woman smelling gathering smoke and deciding hate pays better as public scene than as private dry meat. Mare teeth on guest grass, Orun whispered, suddenly sober. Or guests becoming grass, Harker said. I felt the second skin sit up fully, no longer rumor, no longer thin. A fight near, a pattern near completion. Kadan's cold joy of moving shots stirred like weather under a door. Laws, I told it. Camp, net, no old feuds. It did not answer in words. Patterns do not need words when drums are already speaking. I put Naran's hand on my wrist poles for 3 breaths until both of us believed the rhythm. Then I strung my bow with hands that were still mine and looked toward the dark south fringe where smoke thinned into country that did not care about bronze rings or easy swears. Gathering smoke had bought us middle for a season if we lived the night. Living the night might cost the very control I had come here to prove. I checked the calendar bite, the plain face, the living names, and I waited for dust with teeth to decide whether this bowl would stay a market of belonging or become a board for a dead captain's unfinished war. They came out of the south dark the way professionals come, not as a scream, as a correction to the night's arithmetic. First sign was the bone chime on our outer stake giving one clean clink. Naran's work. Simple. Good. Second sign was Harker's whistle cut short, which meant he had chosen silence over pride. Third sign was the second skin in my ribs sitting up like a hound that has stopped pretending to sleep. I was already moving before Orun found his fox fur voice. Bow up, knife easy, dark mare underhand. I did not mount yet. Mounting is a shout if you do it wrong in a bowl full of drunk cousins. Togol arrived at a crouch that looked insulted by the need to crouch. Intervals, he said. 6, maybe 8. Tooth string glitter on 2. Braid possible on the left lead. They are smelling the bowl, not charging it. Herding minds. They want the devil, not the whole market, unless the market gets stupid. Stupid is free at gatherings, I said. Then buy expensive scents fast, he said, and was gone toward Urke's felt. I put Naran on the mute girl and the scatterrule toward the willow's thickest root shadow, not the open beer light. He wanted the line. I wanted him alive at 30. Alive won by a hair and a shove. Sarnai already had rags boiling on almost no fire, as if she had scheduled blood. Widows pulled children. Batu stopped smiling. The hip, bitter man began counting out loud, nails of number into panic word. Orun stood with a spear and a tremor and still stood. Standing is a kind of gift elders give when running would teach children the wrong god. I mounted the dark mare and felt Kadan's seat pour back toward full without asking permission. Fight weather. The skin loved fight weather more than laws. I let it have the seat and the bow shoulder and locked the rest behind names. Surgical. Or so I told myself while my mouth tasted copper and joy that was not entirely mine. Out beyond the south rope, shapes arranged into the old step math. Pairs, intervals, a left lead that sat too easy. Braid woman. I knew the whistle language from the day Kadan died, and she took leftovers away with teeth still attached. Hate stored like dry meat. Tonight she had unwrapped it. A long shot whispered over the bowl and stuck in a felt war with a sound like a rude finger on a drum. Someone screamed, not hit, only educated. Education spread. Jars dropped. Men who had been brave on beer became honest on iron. Urke's voice rolled, broad, ordering non-combat knots inward and marked spears to the fringe. Middle trying to stay middle while edges became knives. Rivermark riders moved with ugly competence, grief and skill braided. Flint eyes looked once toward me as if checking whether I was the cause whether or the answer whether. I gave him neither face. I gave the fringe my outline as bait. Come on, I told the dark and the braid and the dead captain in my tendons. Take the dog, leave the house. They adjusted, professionals. 2 peeled to pin our outer rope. 2 watched the willow for panic exits. The lead pair came for me on a line that would drag any pursuer away from Beerlight into running ground. Classic. Take the loud problem, chew it where songs have fewer witnesses. I went. Not because Kadan wanted a duel, because the alternative was intervals turning the bowl into a pincushion of cousins who had just accepted my spit as symbol. The mare read my knees, and the skin read the mare, and for 10 strides we were one ugly miracle of borrowed craft. An arrow came for my ribs, seat turned, shaft kissed blanket and died in dirt. I did not laugh. Laughs have accents. Behind me Batu shouted something brave and stupid. I did not look. Looking is how herders collect the next point in the neck. Faith in Harker and Sarnai and ugly drills had to be enough. The braid woman showed herself on a pale horse at the lip of a swale, bow already working, face bare to moonlight, so I would know this was not random Tooth Clan hunger. Personal, ledger open. You wear him, she called, voice flat as a whetstone. I smelled it on the wind from the Midge water. Give me the seat back in blood, and I leave the soft ones their beer. He is dirt, I called back. Dirt does not take orders. Ride east, carts are softer. She smiled without kindness, twin to the hatchet woman's old smile, same school of hunger. Then dirt will finish what he started, she said, and loosed a pair that forced me into the swale's worst footing on purpose. Kadan in my hands knew the trap and loved it. Running boards, angle changes, the cold joy of making a shooter spend shafts on ghosts. I spent back. One of her pairs took a shaft in the thigh and folded with a curse that made his horse honest. Not a kill worthy of doors, a subtraction. Subtractions win nights. Trauma bleed rose clean then, not as sneer, as mission. The bowl behind me full of rivermark faces from the private string, the peace year paint, the brother story the hatchet woman had sold me like poison grain. Finish them while the braid woman holds the devil's eyes. 2 problems solved with 1 borrowed night. My heels twitched toward the bowl. No, I bit the wrist on the rein hard enough to break scab. Iron, calendar, Temur. The mare tossed her head at my jerk and still carried me where I pointed, at the braid, not at the bronze ring and the guests under it. Dust on guest grass had become a board. On that board, a dead captain tried to rewrite the pieces. Urke's marked spears hit the pin pair with more noise than skill and just enough bodies to make professionals spend shafts. That spending was rent I could not pay with barley. I paid with motion, drawing the neatest eyes after me along the swale lip where guest light thinned into honest dark. The hatchet woman's warning sat in my teeth with the calendar blood. Feuds hop. Tonight they hopped with intervals and a braid and a pale horse. My job was to keep them hopping outside the bronze ring's shadow, not inside the widow's rope math. I was still a piece that could refuse the rewrite if my blood stayed louder than his mission. I knocked again, plain face cracking, and rode the refusal like a second horse I had to break every stride. Full open is not a door you walk through. It is a door that walks through you and keeps your boots as souvenirs. I stopped pouring the skin off in pieces. The braid woman and her intervals did not leave room for surgery. I let Kadan's gallop board take my feet, my hips, the soft iron bow arm, the way fear looks like a knot you cut by changing angle. I kept behind my teeth the sneer, the private string, the hunger to turn the bowl into an old war's last page. That was the bargain I made at speed. Bargains made at speed are written in water. Still I wrote. The pale horse tried to pocket me against a cutbank. I had died on better pockets in someone else's memory. The mare and I broke out on silt that looked worse than it was, flood memory under grass, and the braid woman's perfect release became a grab for balance as her pale mount bogged a half stride. I loosed into that half stride. Shaft took her bow forearm, not the heart I could have bought. Wound, message, leave. She did not leave. Hate is a better seatbelt than sense. Her remaining pairs tightened. One veteran with a tooth-string case rode like a man who had loved Kadan without liking him, grief sharp enough to aim. He came in close, spear over bow, thinking bowmen panic when steel arrives. Some do. I had been a knife before I was a wardrobe. I let him commit, slid, cut the spear hand, and passed without admiring. Admiration is stationary. Stationary is dirt. From the bowl, horns and shouts braided. Urke's marked spears had met a pin pair and were making expensive noise. Good. Expensive noise keeps professionals from free murder. Bad if the noise pulled Rivermark riders into angles that looked like Kadan's old kill lanes. I could not shepherd every cousin. I could shepherd my own hands. The second skin offered a finishing pattern so beautiful it hurt. Swing wide, use the braid woman as hinge, drive her pairs into the Rivermark knot as if they were one enemy. Let guest grass drink every grudge at once. Walk out wearing whatever worthy death floated up. Efficient, monstrous, exact. I refused the hinge. Refusal felt like tearing muscle from bone. My vision went white at the edges. Nose poured. The mare felt the tear and pinned her ears, still carrying. Partnership under tax. Temur, I snarled into wind, and the name was a hook in my own cheek. The braid woman saw me shudder and fought at weakness. She closed. Close is where horse archers stop being weather and become people who bleed. I met her with knife and bowstave and the ugly short work of men who have run out of elegant distance. Her pale horse screamed when my blade opened a line on its shoulder. She screamed when my stave broke her already hurt arm's ambition. We both stayed mounted by stubbornness and bad luck. A shaft from nowhere cut my ribs shallow. Not her. The grieving veteran circling back with a second weapon and a first love for dead captains. Blood sheeted warm under me a wrap. Sanai would murder me if I lived. Motivation. I put the veteran down hard enough that he would not stand tonight, and not soft enough to open a worthy door. Laws, even now, especially now. The hollow lunged for the door anyway. I slammed it with the image of Naran in root shadow and the mute girl's stones and Orun's stupid fur. Door held, barely. Pattern still open full in the craft. Craft is not crime. Crime is what craft does when grief steers. I wheeled toward the pin fight at the bowl fringe because screams there had changed pitch from courage to arithmetic failure. Two mare teeth on foot among felts is a different animal than pears on grass. On foot they become knives in a sack. Dangerous, directionless. Directionless knives cut children. I rode in too fast for manners and too slow for my own fear. Saw Harker holding a stake like a spear. Saw Batu with a mallet and a split lip. Saw a Rivermark youth with blue at his throat, trading cuts with a Tooth Clan man and losing by inches. Saw, through Kadan's eyes, the youth's face slot onto the private string like a bead finding its hole.
"Finish," the pattern said without language. My bow came up without my pride's permission. The angle was perfect. The youth's opponent had just slipped. One shaft would take both problems if I wanted theatre. One shaft would take the youth clean if I wanted the string paid. My fingers found the old release. A hand hit my boot from the ground. Sanai. Paste-burned fingers, eyes like nails. "Name," she said, not loud, not soft. "Name." I could not find it. The pattern smiled with my mouth. Then Naran's voice cracked across guest grass from somewhere he should not have been. Ordinary tone abandoned for rope raw enough to strip skin. "Temur." The word hit the release, spoiled it. Shaft went high into night like a wasted prayer. The youth lived long enough for Batu's mallet to end the Tooth Clan man instead. Living math, ugly. Mine by a boy's throat and a woman's hand on my boot. I shook so hard the mare danced. Full open craft still poured. Full open mission had almost spent a guest life through my string. The braid woman, one arm ruined, whistled retreat sharp as a thrown nail. Professionals taste failed boards. They left intervals ragged, not broken. Hate still dry meat solid for another night. I did not chase. Chase was Kadan's old religion. My ribs wept. My hands were not fully mine. The bowl full of hard eyes had just seen something worse than a devil who kills enemies. They had seen a devil who almost kills the piece he spat under bronze. Pattern opens full. What bites back is not only the enemy. What bites back is the war inside the craft when you need the craft to keep your people breathing. I got down before the skin could use my heels again and pressed my forehead to the mare's hot neck until the only smell left was horse and my own iron and Sanai's bitter paste on the air like a law with a body. After a failed board, the night does not reset. It only changes which knives are still awake. The braid woman's retreat left 3 problems on the grass. A 5-shot man trying to crawl into dark, the spearhand veteran moaning around broken fingers, and a third who had doubled back toward Rivermark ropes with a short blade and a mind for hostages. Professionals leave gifts. Gifts explode if you pet them wrong. I should have stayed down with my forehead on horse neck until the skin cooled. I did not. Cooling is a luxury of men whose guests are not about to become corpses that prove Middle was stupid for sheltering a devil. I moved on foot into the fringe mess with bow slack and knife working. Foot is slower. Foot is also harder for a gallop pattern to fully own. That was the theory. Theories die in ankle-high grass full of tent pegs and spilled beer and children who chose the wrong shadow. The hostage-minded man had a Rivermark girl by the braid, blue cloth strip at her throat twisted in his fist, blade across her collarbone. Flint Eyes was 3 steps too far with a spear that would kill the girl if it killed the man. Classic ugly. The second skin inventoried angles the way Kadan inventoried herds. I spoke calm as weather because the skin knew calm drops hostage hands a finger's width. "Let her go and walk," I said.
Your captain woman has whistled. Living cowards breed. Dead heroes feed midges. He grinned blood. You wear mare teeth. Good. He hated these soft river rats. Help me finish one, and I tell the braid you are brother. The pattern liked brother. My stomach turned so hard I nearly vomited paste and weak beer. Not brother, I said. Thief. Thieves return what they steal when the owner bites. I threw the knife not at him, at the ground between his feet, a stupid-looking miss that made him glance down the way proud men glance at insults. In the glance I closed, took his blade wrist and broke the line of the hold with a turn that was pure Kadan clinch from horse translated to dirt. The girl tore free screaming. Flint eyes surged. The man tried to gut me. I let the skin take the parry and the return cut to his forearm tendons. He dropped. Lived. Worthless door. Good. Hands that were not mine had still done living work. Then the real bite came. Across the rope, in the confusion of people grabbing children and spears, Batu wrestled a panicked cousin who thought every running shape was Tooth Clan. Batu yelled his own name like a password. The cousin had a jar shard. Batu had the mallet and a split lip and loyalty thicker than sense. They turned in torch spill just as my eyes, still running Kadan's threat board, tagged motion plus weapon as remaining enemy geometry. The bow was in my hands again. I did not remember raising it. Release began, not full, the beginning of full. Finger escape starting, shoulder hinge ready, breath out without drama. Perfect craft aimed at the wrong story. Harker hit me, not ear, jaw. Peg mallet love. The world tilted. Shaft kicked left and burned a groove in a felt pole a hand's width from Batu's spine. Batu turned, saw the groove, saw me, and for one clean second his face held the kind of fear you cannot joke back into friendship. I heard myself make a sound that was not a word. Naran slammed into my side like a small goat, both hands on my wrist, mouth against my sleeve. Temur, Temur, Temur. Each repeat a nail. Each nail threw borrowed tendon into whatever meat was still named me.
Sanai took the bow from my fingers the way you take a snake from a baby's blanket. No drama, no permission asked. She threw it under our felt. Urke arrived with missing fingers shining with someone else's blood and eyes that had already built a pyre in imagination. Can you take it off? Urke asked, very low, for me alone and for the hard eyes pretending not to lean in. I do not know, I said, honest enough to taste like blood. Learn now, he said, or I will help you the hard way before the kill him edge writes a song that burns more than one man. The second skin, offended by jaw hit and bow theft, tried to stand me up into a finishing spin that would put Harker down for the insult and Urke down for the threat and clear space like a captain making a circle. My legs started it. I dropped myself deliberately into dirt, knees first, hands open, forehead to guest grass that stank of beer and fear. I poured. Not surgical pretty pour under stars, emergency dump. Knees, hips, bow shoulder, clinch memory, threat board, brother word, private string beads, cold joy, sneer, all of it named Kadan and thrown onto the ground in front of my open hands as if I could make the grass hold him. The body charged whole in full, nose, ears ringing, ribs screaming, vision tunneling to Naran's knuckles white on my wrist. Leave room, I begged nothing and everything. Leave room for Temur. Emptiness hit like cold river. For 3 breaths there was no craft, only a man on his knees with a bitten wrist and a boy saying his name like a rope thrown into a well. Hands that are not mine had almost written Batu's death into Middle's ledger. Hands that were mine again could not stop shaking long enough to apologize in a voice worth hearing. I whispered sorry to the dirt first, then to Batu's boots when they stopped 3 steps away and did not come closer. He did not answer. Silence is also a verdict. Around us, guest grass held its breath and decided whether spit under bronze still counted when the spitter's pattern had bitten the house it promised to buffer. I stayed on my knees until the hollow, emptied of Kadan's fire, began to ask for any death at all to fill the cold. That ask is how men become coat racks. I bit the calendar until fresh blood answered and told the hollow no in a plain voice the boy could hear and tax. Almost is a country with more graves than maps admit. The stone is cut, the name is held in the mouth. Then someone pulls you back by the wrist and you have to live knowing how light the chisel felt. Batu did not die.
The felt pole wore my shaft groove like a sneer. That groove was the funeral's first tool mark. People kept glancing at it as if it might grow teeth. Urke cleared space with middle authority. Wounded to Sani's rags, Tooth Clan crawlers bound, Rivermark girl to her women, spears on a wider ring. Beer jars kicked over so courage could not rebuy itself stupid. He did not look at me while he did this. Looking would make me a center. Centers draw sermons. Orun tried to stand in front of me with fox fur and failed because his legs were drunk with delayed fear. He sat instead, hard, and put his face in his hands. Elders are allowed collapses after the spears stop. I envied the permission. Naran would not let go of my wrist. His fingers had gone numb and still held. The mute girl stood behind him, humming a broken square of sound, eyes on my mouth, waiting to see which man spoke next. I showed her plain Temur lips. She did not look comforted. Comfort is not owed. Sanai packed my rib cut with paste that felt like coal and judgment. She did not flick my ear. The absence of the flick was worse. Ear flicks are for living fools. Silence is for men who almost made widows. You dumped it, she said finally, not a question. Most of it, I said. Enough to stop, not enough to trust. Trust is a season, she said. You get days if you earn mornings. Harker sat on his heels nearby, jaw bruised from my shoulder when he hit me, hands loose, eyes flat. Next time I hit harder, he said. Next time hit first, I said. He grunted. Treaty of ugly men. Batu stood at the edge of the cleared space with his mallet and would not enter. Loyalty had met geometry and lost a piece it might not grow back. I did not call him. Calling is a hook. Hooks right now would be insults. Flint Eyes came instead. Rivermark blue dark with dirt. Girl alive behind his shadow. Your arrow chose wrong, he said. My hands chose late, I said. Late is still guilt. Your girl lives. My friend almost did not. I will not paint it. He studied my empty hands. Kadan would have painted. You stink less than him tonight. Less is not none. We will remember less. Remembering is fair, I said. He left without blessing. Blessings would have been lies. The braid woman was gone into South Dark with her ruined arm and her ledger still open. The thigh shop man we bound. The tendon cut man we bound. Urke would sell them north as warnings or keep them as labor. Middle math, not mine. The hatchet woman, still hooded at our felt, laughed once when she heard the counts, a sound like a dry stick breaking. Told you feuds hop, she said. Hop onto my tongue and I will cut it out myself, I said, and meant it enough that she stopped laughing.
Toward false dawn, the kill him edge found its mouth, a thick cousin of some branch with jar courage left over, pointing at the shaft groove and calling for fire the way frightened men call for simple gods. Devil, burn, forget. The words moved through remaining knots like grease on a pot drum. Urk met them under the cracked willow with the bronze ring cold above his head and my almost funeral as exhibit. He burned a shaman once, Urk told them, missing fingers light on the air. He will burn this one if the taking off fails again. Tonight the taking off held after the bite. Held is not holy. Held is useful. Useful keeps your herds from becoming mare-teeth math while empire writes nouns. You want simple fire? Simple fire makes simple martyrs and complicated ghosts. Sit down, drink water, count your living. Some sat, some did not. Middle is never unanimous. Unanimous is for graves. I stayed on the outer rope where almost had happened and let the hard eyes price me again. Not hero, not clean devil, something worse and better. A man whose pattern had bitten his own house and who had dumped the pattern in dirt before the chisel finished the name. Naran finally slept sitting up against my knee, fingers slack at last on my wrist. I did not move the knee. Pins and needles became a kind of prayer. Orun crawled near enough to speak without a crowd. If they brand us after this, the brand will be hot, he said. If they exile us, the grass will be cold, I said. Both are weather. We still choose how we walk in it. He nodded, fox fur filthy, eyes older. Belonging hunger had met almost funeral and learned a tuition. I looked east once, scheduled dust somewhere under paling stars, clerks, boards, tribute logic. The hollow, cold from the dump, leaned toward any worthy warmth and found only my refusal and the boy's weight on my leg. Almost a funeral,
Almost is not mercy. Almost is a teacher that leaves the classroom standing, so you have to clean the blood yourself. I cleaned what I could. Bow retrieved from under felt and unstrung, knife wiped, mare watered, dun checked, wrist-bitten calendar refreshed, laws restated dull until they were tools again and not poems. Only worthy deaths open the wardrobe. Do not let a skin finish its old feuds with my hands. Never tell the camp the truth in words they can repeat to an enemy. Leave room in fight for Temur. Soft a fifth, paid an almost. When the craft is fullest, pour first, shoot second. Full open without pour is how patterns bite back through the people who say your name like rope. Dawn would ask what middle still owed a rear dog who had nearly buried his own. I would answer with work, not speeches. Speeches start songs. I walked once to the shaft groove and put my fingers in the wood scar. Fresh, ugly, true. Better a pole than a spine. I left the fingers there until splinters bit and then pulled away before anyone could turn the gesture into theatre. Harker watched without comfort. Comfort would have been a lie. Lies are how almost becomes next time. Songs start hunters. Hunters start the funerals almost had postponed. Morning after almost is a thin broth. Everyone drinks, no one is nourished. Irk made me take off in public weather before the kill him edge could invent a better story than the one where I knelt and dumped a dead captain onto guest grass. He cleared a circle not under the willow, away from bronze and beer memory, on open ground where exits were visible and hard eyes could stand without pretending they were not watching. Middle theatre, necessary theatre. I hated it and walked into it because refusal now would be a different kind of confession. Sarnai stood at my left with paste and a mallet she did not hide. Harker at my right with instructions to hit early. Naran sat on a felt scrap with the mute girl and orders to say the rope word at the first wrong mouth. Orun held the dark mare's rein at the circle edge so the animal would not become a vehicle for anyone dead. Batu stood outside the ring entirely, arms folded, mallet through belt, eyes on my hands, not my face. Fair. Irk spoke to the crowd first. He will put it on and take it off, Irk said. Craft up, craft down. If down fails, we end this useful ugly another way. If down holds, you stop calling for fire like children who fear dark more than winter. He nodded at me. I called the second skin, not with blood, with memory of the running board, the seat, the release, the cold joy. The wardrobe does not always need a fresh door when a door still hangs loose on its hinges. Kadan poured back in like heat into cold hands, less than battleful, enough to change my stance and the way my eyes counted throats. Someone in the crowd hissed, someone else prayed to a sky that did not answer. I let them see the change and hated every witness and needed every witness. Now take it off, Irk said. I poured, piece by piece, named, placed on grass. Knees, hips, bow shoulder, threatboard, sneer, string beads, joy. Each name a nail out, nosebleed, tremor, the hollow yawning. Naran's voice once, ordinary tone, as I hit the empty stretch. Temur. I answered here without being told. When only mare reading remained, I left even that on the ground and stood as plain rear dog with sore ribs and a jaw bruise and eyes that had to work without borrowed weather. Irk walked a full circle around me, sniffing like a man who does not trust priests and trusts his own missing fingers more. Again, he said.
I did it again. On the third round, the skin resisted, sulked, tried to leave a barbed hook of feud warmth behind my tongue. I bit the calendar, tasted iron, spat red on the grass beside the imaginary tools, and said no until the hook let go, toll in ears and gut. I did not fall. Falling would have been poetry. Poetry feeds fire-sayers. Batu's mouth twitched, not a smile, a crack in a wall. I did not look long enough to make it a demand. Irke raised his incomplete hand. Down holds today, he said to the hard eyes. Useful remains useful. Winter math remains open for the outer rope camp if they leave at dusk and send news when dust has brains. If his hands go wrong again on guest grass, I will not argue middle. I will bring rope and oil myself. That is the bargain. Bargain louder than songs. Some spit agreement, some turned away to pack early. The thick cousin of the fire sermon spat in a different direction and left with 3 riders who preferred simple gods. Middle thinner, middle still standing.
Standing is the victory available to ugly calls. After the crowd broke, Irke kept me alone long enough for truth without theatre. You almost finished a piece-year debt with a boy's friend as ink, he said. That is the pattern biting back, not the braid woman. Her I understand, the dead captain using your love of living names as cover while he hunts old beads on his string. Learn to feel the string before the release. If you cannot, stop wearing him. Empty is safer than gifted murder. Empty loses running fights, I said. Then lose smaller and live, he said, or win once and burn. Choose with your own mouth, not his scar. He left, missing fingers light, pyre postponed. I sat on the circle dirt and shook until Sanai made me drink salt broth and called me a fool in 3 tones. Naran showed me his rope-burned fingers from holding my wrist in the night. I wrapped them with a strip from my own sleeve. Tacks both directions. Batu came to the edge at last. If you point that board at me again, he said, I will break your hands and then cry about it later. Break first, I said. Cry if you have water. He snorted. Pain and almost laughter braided and threw me a strip of meat like a man testing whether a dog still knew the difference between feeding and biting. I ate. Ordinary. Ordinary is the home skin's rent. Rent paid late with interest in almost funerals. Taking off had become public fact. Public facts travel. They travel slower than devil songs and faster than honest quiet. I practiced once more alone by the mare, pour and call and pour, until the muscle learned the path without nosebleed every time. Still bled once. Tolls drop. They do not vanish. Dusk would move us off guest grass before simple gods returned with oil. East still held schedule dust and lacquered nouns drying toward my shape. I had learned the lesson the chapter promised in blood and almost. Patterns finish old wars if you let full open mean full permission. Control is not refusing the wardrobe. Control is the pour when the craft is loudest, the name when the string looks like a friend's spine, the hands opened on dirt before they close on the wrong throat. I whispered that until it went dull. Dull laws hold when hard eyes blink and still see you. I intended to stay visible as Temur, emptied and refillable, expensive, leashed, and done with pretending thinning skins go quiet without work. We left the cracked willow at dusk like people who had overstayed a kindness and understayed a sentence. Outer rope first, no parade, spare mounts quiet. The dun led, not ridden, because riding Kadan's horse away from Rivermark eyes would have been a finger on a bruise already purple. The dark mare took my plain seat without borrowed corrections and forgave me with one ear. Partnership is who runs when the dust comes and who walks when walking is the smarter lie. Irka did not escort us. Escorts are brands. He sent Toggle for half a valley, practical spy making sure our dust went where Middle could still claim it was managed. Toggle spoke little. When he did, it was infantry. 2 bound mare teeth stay with Irka, he said. Braid woman free with 1 arm and a story. Firesayers rode west-south with simple oil dreams. Empire screens still in goat thorns if luck holds. Your name is now Takeoff as much as Stone Rock. Use that. Takeoff is a tool priests hate because it is not clean miracle and not clean blasphemy. Tools get borrowed, I said. Everything gets borrowed, Toggle said, glanced at my wrists, and turned back toward beer country without farewell. Farewells are for people who believe in safe returns. Plain knife work began as soon as his dust thinned. Not metaphor. Actual knives. A felt rope frayed in the move. A hip bitter man's litter lashing. A widow's pack frame. I put my hands on ordinary failures and fixed them while the camp watched to see if ordinary was still possible. Harker tossed me a bridle that needed a new throat latch. Batu did not toss me anything, but he did not walk out of reach either. Progress measured in paces, not speeches. Noran drilled scatter paths at each short halt with the mute girl and 2 smaller cousins who had attached like burrs. He used ordinary tone Temur as a joke once and looked scared after. I told him jokes are allowed if the rope still works when jokes end. He nodded, filed it, became older by another blink. Sanai made me stop every time my eyes went long toward east dust. Pour, she said. I poured the lean without putting a full skin on, just the lean. Named it Hollow Want. Left it on the grass, bit calendar, walked. Control lesson in motion. Ugly, repeatable. The kind of drill that keeps almost funerals unpaid. On the second morning, a thing problem found us. Two scavengers on bad horses who had smelled gathering leftovers and thought our line was wounded enough to shear. Not mare teeth, not empire, just hunger with knives. Orin froze. Widows lifted packs like shields. Batu lifted the mallet. I lifted nothing borrowed. Plain Temur. Short bow, bad ribs, jaw sore, seat ordinary. I shot the first horse in the haunch, not the man, because dead men make feuds and lamed horses make choices. The scavenger spilled, rolled, ran. The second man came at me on foot with a long knife and courage priced by our grain sacks. I met him without gallop board, without clinch memory from a captain, with the knife school I had owned before wardrobe doors. Slower, uglier. I took a cut along the already hurt ribs that made white fire of Sarnai's pace job. I put him down with a pommel to the temple and a knee on his wrist until he opened his hand. No worthy door opened. Good. I did not want one. I wanted the camp to see me bleed for grain without anyone else's joy in my mouth. We left the scavengers tied to their own lame luck with water and a warning. Orin wanted throats cut. Throats cut are simple. Simple was the Firesayer's god. I refused and took Orin's glare as rent. Batu spoke to me that evening for the first time in full sentences since the shaft groove. You were slow, he said. I was mine, I said. Slow and yours almost got your guts stacked, he said. Slow and mine did not put a groove beside your spine, I said. He looked at the dark and then at me and then at the mallet in his lap. Keep being slow when the board is wrong, he said. Be fast when it is scavengers. I will hit you if the mix confuses you. I will try to make hitting boring, I said. He snorted. Almost friendship, limping home. Harker cleaned my new cut while Sarnai mixed paste and insulted my talent for opening myself. The mute girl brought a stone and set it near my knee, part of her 3-stone grammar. I did not know the word. I nodded anyway. Treaties survived translation failure. Night watch. Stars hard as salt again. I practiced call and paw once in the dark without witnesses except the mare. On, off. On with only seat, off. Toll lighter, still real. Urka's burned shaman sat behind my eyes and did not chew fingers this time. He only watched. Watching is a better teacher when the student has almost dug a grave. East dust before dawn was thicker. Not scavengers, line logic. Cart spacing imagination or fact. Tribute road breathing nearer even when we could not see lacquer. The hollow leaned, cold and interested. I poured the lean, named it, left it, put my palm on the mare, recited living names until the lean slept. Plain knife work is not glory. At a short halt, I made Naran run the net without me calling skin. Name, answer expected none. Hand on wrist of a standing pack saddle as proxy. Harker's step in on lagged silence. The boy scowled at practicing on wood. Wood is how you keep flesh unpracticed as target. He learned it with his mouth tight and his hands correct. Sarnai checked my rib paste and called the scavenger cut honest. Honest cuts she would pack. Pattern cuts that came from wrong boards she would let sting longer on purpose. I did not argue the medicine of shame. Shame that keeps friends breathing is a tool. Plain knife work is how you prove the takeoff was not a one-morning theatre for hard eyes. I slept a little as Temur, expensive, necessary, slower, still leashed, and let the grass remember hooves that chose walking when walking kept funerals theoretical. Laws without teeth are bedtime stories. Laws with teeth leave marks you can show a boy when his hands shake. At the next bend, we chose water that stank of reeds and safety, not the midge hell of the false leaf. A cousin fold Orun half-remembered and Harker disliked for its open east lip. Dislike is information. We stacked watches on the lip and made almost no smoke and began the dull work of turning almost funeral into camp raw. I called a council of the willing that was really a lesson with witnesses. Widows, Batu, Harker, Orun, Naran, Sarnai, hip better counter, even the hatchet woman at rope edge, because maps should hear what they have helped draw. I laid the laws out dull, then bit them until they bled meaning. Only worthy deaths open the wardrobe. Worthy is not anger. Worthy is craft that could have killed you clean. Scavengers are not doors. Drunk cousins are not doors. Boys who say your name are never doors. Do not let a skin finish its old feuds with my hands. If my eyes hang a string name on a guest, someone hits me and I pour before I explain. Explanation is how feuds borrow your mouth. Never tell the camp the truth in words they can repeat to an enemy. You saw takeoff. You may say I trained strange. You may not say wardrobe, door, wear, dead captain in my tendons. Words travel. Clerks collect nouns. Priests collect flames. Leave room inside for Temur. If my face goes wrong, ordinary tone name first. Hand on wrist second. Hit third. Order matters. Hits without names make patterns fight. Names without hits sometimes fail. Both are tools.
Fifth law, new, paid in a felt pole groove. When craft is fullest, pour first, shoot second. Full open is not full permission. Full open without pour is how patterns bite back through the spines of people you would burn the world to keep. I made Naran repeat the fifth until he rolled his eyes, and then made him repeat it once more because eye rolls are how boys hide fear. Sanai added teeth of her own. If he refuses pour when told, I stop packing his wounds, she said. Bleeding out is a teacher too. I prefer paste. I will use silence if he chooses dead man's joy over living work. Orun swallowed and asked the question under the laws. Are we still under middle winter math after the almost? Togel's message said open if we send news, I said. Open is not warm. Warm is earned by boring seasons. We will be boring if it kills us. Boring is a skill. Batu lifted his chin. If middle calls bodies to a fight that smells like Kadan's string, what then? Then I go empty or I do not go, I said. I will not wear a feud into a clan war and call it loyalty. If that breaks Brand was a noose already. Harker grunted approval. Orun looked sick and nodded anyway. Widows exchanged looks that meant daughters would be watched closer and grain hidden deeper. Fair. Laws with teeth bite both ways. I drilled the net in daylight so it would not be theatre only under panic. Call skin on the mare at walk. Sanai says pour, I pour. Naran says Temur, I answer. Harker steps in if answer lags. Batu watches hands. We did it until midges could have learned the steps. Embarrassing, necessary. A cousin child laughed once and was not scolded. Laughter breaks worship. Worship is how fifth laws die. The hatchet woman spoke at the end, almost thoughtful. Kadan would have hated your fifth law, she said. He loved full permission. That is why he is dirt and you are still ugly alive. Do not get proud. Proud is full permission in better clothes. I did not thank her. I filed her. Filing is rent. Toward evening, I sat with Batu at the east lip and did not ask forgiveness in pretty shape. I almost buried you with a perfect shot, I said. Perfect is not good. I will be slower when the board is wrong. I need you willing to break my hands. I am willing, he said. I hated being willing. Hate is fine. Just do not make me practice on your corpse. Corpses are boring teachers. We clasped forearms. His grip tested bones. Mine accepted. Treaty thicker than the night of the groove, thinner than the years before wardrobe doors. Enough. Naran brought the mute girl and asked if laws worked on dreams. Dreams are where tolls sneak, I said. You already tax me there. Keep taxing. If I ever do not answer my name, you run to Cyanide and Harker, not toward my hands. He hated that order and accepted it. Good boy, expensive boy. The tax of liking kept my appetite from getting free meals. Night. I wrote the laws again on the inside of my skull by whispering until sleep almost took the words and then whispering once more. Dull, duller, tools. Far east, something like cart dust moved under starlight or under imagination. Tribute road logic, empire schedule, third skin somewhere on a lacquered man who believed boards were bones of the world. The hollow leaned. I poured the lean, fifth law first, even without full craft, and felt the pattern that bites back meet teeth that were mine. Control is not purity. Control is marked laws, public drills, boy ropes, woman silence threats, friend mallet treaties, and the willingness to be slow in front of people who want lightning. I slept as Temur under those teeth and did not smile. Smiles start rumors. I made Batu stand in as ringboard motion once during drill, mallet half raised, face blank, while I held a strong bow at rest and practiced the paw before any finger thought of escape. My arms shook. Good. Shaking means the body remembers the groove.
When I poured clean, he nodded. Once, small, expensive. That nod was worth more than barley. Orun asked if fifth law needed witness spit under bronze. I said no. Spit is for herds and seasons. Fifth law is for hands in the dark when no bronze is watching. We spit work instead. Daily pour, daily name, daily hit if lag. Rumors start hunters. Hunters start funerals the laws were written to postpone. Middle did not send a feast. Middle sent a rider with a sack and a sentence. Toggle found our reed fold 3 days after the cracked willow, offended by our east lip. Midge is optional this time. Eyes counting horse ribs and men's sleeps. He dropped the sack at Orun's feet. Barley, dried fish, a strip of blue cloth that was not Rivermark claim, but Urke's branch token for winter coat share on outer grass. Hook visible, grain real. Sentence first, Toggle said. You are buffer, not hearth. You send news of dust with brains within a day. You do not bring wardrobe weather onto marked herds or guest bowls. You keep the takeoff public if asked by Urke's mouth only, not by every firesayer with oil. In return, barley now, coats when wind goes mean, and middle argument if empire asks for a noun that sounds like you. Orun's hands shook on the sack. Belonging hunger fed enough to stop starving, not enough to get fat. Fat is how thin camps get slaughtered for looking rich. And if firesayers come, I asked,
Then you run or you hold and send for Irka before you become a sermon, Toggle said. He postponed your pyre. Postponed is not cancelled. You bought middle with almost corpse theatre and a pour that held. Expensive. Do not ask for discounts. He looked at Batu's face, at the way Batu stood near me again, but not in my blind spot. Good, Toggle said to no one and everyone. Fear with loyalty is sturdier than worship. Worship breaks. Fear checks string wax. He refused tea, already turning, then paused. Braid woman is gathering cousins on the dry belt southeast. Not many. Enough to make a second public scene if you get famous again. Empire screen left goat thorns. Ink less muddy. They asked for devil and take off both. Cousins sold them a sick shaman story and 3 wrong valleys. Wrong valleys empty. Next questions will be ruder. How rude, Sanai asked, paste-stained fingers on her hips. Rude like riders who do not accept widow spirits as tax answers, Toggle said. Rude like boards with your mare's colour noted. Leave this fold before the moon thins. Move like people who understand maps hate them. Then he was dust. Counsel over barley felt different than counsel over fear. Food makes courage and arguments. Widows wanted fish counted twice. Batu wanted to know if buffer meant wrestling at larger gatherings. Orun wanted to hang the blue strip where guests would see. I said hang it inside the main felt, not on a pole. Poles are invitations. Inside is memory without advertisement. Naran touched the barley like it might bite. This is because you almost killed Batu, he said, too honest for politics. This is because we lived and Irka can still use living tools, I said. Almost is not currency we spend twice. We spend boring. Boring buys moons. The hatchet woman eyed the blue strip and laughed under breath. Middle brands devils with cloth now, she said. Cloth burns easier than skin. Congratulations. I cut her hobble to a longer walking lead and put her on water holds under Sanai's eye. Useful prisoners complicate simple fire stories. Complicated is safer than pure hate when hard eyes invent sermons. That night I paid the expensive middle with drills again. Call, pour, name, answer. Harker early hit on a lagged answer that was my own testing. Jaw lit. Good. Pain calendars stack. Batu shared fish without looking at my hands. You buy me barley with my almost death, he said. I hate the math. I will eat anyway. Eat, I said. Hate the math sober. Drunk hate becomes firesayer food. He ate. I ate. Ordinary. The mare stamped. East lip held Harker's outline against stars. Orun sat beside me after the boy slept. I wanted a clan more than I wanted sense, he said. Fox fur thin in places. Sense arrived with a groove and a pole. I am trying to love sense. Love work instead, I said. Work feeds widows. Clan love feeds songs. Songs fed the almost. He nodded, eyes wet, elder enough to cry without becoming a child. I respected the water and did not name it. Middle bought expensive. Expense is not regret only.
Expense is a price tag you keep visible so you do not buy the same knife twice. I walked the east lip at last watch and felt the second skin as memory more than fire, available if I called, refused when I did not. Control lesson holding in quiet. Quiet is the exam that matters after public theatre. Far out, dust lines suggested carts on a schedule older than my name. Tribute Road, Empire Breath. The hollow leaned and met Fifth Law and Boy Rope and Mallet Treaty and sat down unhappy. Unhappy hollows are honest. Honest is livable. I whispered the branch bargain once, not as worship, as inventory. Barley, coats, news duty, no wardrobe on guest grass, pyre postponed. Then I whispered my own bargain under it. Names over hollow, pour over full permission, Temur over coat rack. 2 bargains, both hooks, both visible. I chose to carry them into whatever moon-thin road came next, including the one that writes names in clean clerked hands and waits with lacquered patience for thin camps to make mistakes. Behind me, camp smoke almost nothing rose and died. I portioned fish with widows so the sack would not become Orun's private proof of belonging. Belonging proof is how elders get soft and camps get mapped. Soft elders I could love. Mapped camps I could not afford. The widows counted twice anyway, and I blessed the counting. At the east lip, Harker said, Empire rude questions travel faster than branch tokens. I said, then we travel faster than rude. Speed without dust theatre. Dust theatre is a letter written on the sky for clerks. Ahead, the horizon kept its teeth. I named the living again until the hollow had to share the room. Sarnai, Naran, Orun, Batu, Harker, Mute Girl, Dark Mare, the blue cloth inside the felt, the groove in a pole that had agreed to be a teacher. Names are nails. Nails hold when roads right and patterns bite, and middle buys you with barley that still tastes like almost. Between them, a Rhea dog counted payments and refused to call the balance settled. Empire writes names the way winter writes rivers. Slow, deep, and after the ice you find out what drowned. We moved before the moon thinned. Toggle sentence in our feet. West of the reed fold first. False line for any boardman who liked easy tracking. Then north along a water braid that stank and glittered with insect life maps cannot price. Midges again. Batu cursed my cleverness as rent. I accepted curses as proof of living throats. On the second day of the move, our east-eyed cousin, humming cured out of him, came back without colour and without jokes. He had seen the road. Not a screen of 4, a true line. Carts with tribute logic, oxen and horse mix, dust stacked in layers like dirty felt. Guards in dull lacquered scale cloth, riding intervals that made mare-teeth pairs look like cousins at play. A short banner with a tidy flame tip. Officers, boards. The patient insult of schedule made flesh. How far? Orun asked, already foxfur trembling toward panic. Half a day hard ride to their dust if you are stupid, the cousin said. A day if you are only curious. They are not coming here. They are going along their bone. Bone goes toward the Big Bend depots. Bone always does. I took the news on foot, mare rein in hand, so the hollow could not turn my heels into a hunt before laws spoke. Worthy deaths there, the hollow whispered in want language. Neat spears, drill boredom sharpened into weapon. Third skin, Empire seat, boards in the blood. I poured the want onto grass, named it, bit calendar, answered Naran's preemptive Temur with here before he finished the second syllable. Control as reflex, still imperfect, better than the night of the groove. Sarnai watched my hands through the whole pour. Good, she said. Again at dusk. Curiosity is a skin too. Harker wanted to push farther west into emptier starvation. Orun wanted to send the blue strip back to Irke with a scream for spears. Widows wanted to know if tribute guards took children as taxis or only grain. Batu wanted to know if lacquered men wrestled. I wanted a clean hour to think without anyone's hunger using my mouth. We made a dry hide in a cut bank fold, and I crawled a rise on my belly like a thief to see what nouns looked like when they moved. The line was beautiful in the way storms are beautiful when they are still on someone else's house. Order. Water carts, spare mounts, a clerk rider with a tube case that was probably sticks and skin pages, one officer on a tall horse with a seat that made my emptied tendons ache with professional envy. Not Kadan's joy, different craft, drill-born, boredom-forged, the kind of worthy that opens doors if you are fool enough to hunt it alone. I was fool enough to feel the lean. I was taught enough now to pin the lean with fifth law, and the felt pole groove burned behind my eyes like a private brand. Not today, not alone. Not with Batu's spine still learning to trust my board again. Not with middle barley still on our tongues and pyre oil still in someone's pack west-south. I watched until my eyes watered and the line's dust became a single long animal heading toward depots and clerks and the part of the world that believes schedules are bones. When I slid back down, Irke's world and Empire's world sat on either side of my ribs and argued without voices. Orun met me at the cut bank. "Do we run farther?" he asked. "We run smarter," I said. "We keep news duty. We do not throw our names onto their boards by becoming interesting dust in their side vision. We let the road right other men's mistakes first. If the road turns toward our water, we become read and lie. And if a neat officer falls into your lap, the hatchet woman called from below, ugly sweet. Then I decide with laws, not lap," I said. "Decide again is the only everlasting oath that does not turn into a skin." Naran frowned at the horizon he could not see from the cut bank. "Is the road teeth too?" he asked. "Teeth with ink," I said. "Ink lasts longer than bites if you let it dry on you. We will not dry." He liked that enough to almost smile. I did not promise him the road would never taste us. Promises about Empire are how liars stay popular. Night in the cut bank was tight and honest. I drilled paw once, quietly, called a sliver of Kadan's seat to feel the mare in the dark, poured it off, left room. Toll small, muscle learning. Irke's shaman watched without chewing. Sarnai's silent threat sat near like a second moon. Batu snored with one hand on the mallet. Orun muttered belonging math in sleep. The mute girl hummed half a square and stopped, satisfied with unfinished things. Unfinished things are alive. I lay with palm on knife and thought of chapters not yet lived without claiming them. Tribute intercepts, disciplined officers, nights when one skin would not be enough, a war leader with an iron rein who might deserve refusal as much as taking. Claiming future blood is how boys die in their sleep. I only admitted the road was no longer a circle around one river bend or one willow bowl. The hollow liked the admission. I leashed it with names until it lay down, not tamed, only waiting. Road that writes names. My name had travelled as Stone Dog, as Devil, as Takeoff, as Buffer on outer grass. Soon a clerk might try to pin it to a clean square with mare colour and river folds. Pins can be pulled if you move before the hammer finishes. I intended to move as Temur, laws with teeth, pattern leashed, third skin unearned and unchased for this night. Intention is a leash only if morning finds your hands still yours. I breathed out. I stayed. Above the cut bank, the tribute dust settled under stars that did not care who wore whom, and somewhere on that schedule a lacquered officer oiled a spear and believed the world was a board he already understood. He did not understand wardrobe doors. He did not understand boy ropes. He would learn if the road turned its teeth toward our thin smoke, or I would learn what Empire craft tastes like when the hollow's patience ends and the next chapter opens with dust that has a banner. Promise of the pattern that bites back, paid in almost funeral, poor, fifth law, middle expensive, cliff sharp toward the road, season unbroken, waiting, patient as clerks and hungry as hollows and still. For these breaths, held in two hands that knew both bowstring and mallet treaty and the dull teeth of laws that keep a wardrobe from becoming a coffin for everyone you name in the dark. Before true sleep, I walked the cut-bank lip once more with the dark mare breathing at my shoulder and the second skin quiet as a tool on a shelf. Quiet tools still cut if you grab the blade. I did not grab. I named the shelf and left it. Practice without audience, the kind that does not become song. East held the tribute road's aftersmell, dung and axle grease and the faint ghost of lacquer oil on wind. Southeast held a braid woman with one arm and cousins counting hate. West-south held fire sayers with simple gods and postponed oil. North held emptier grass and free starvation pretending to be purity. Horizon still teeth, horizon still waiting for which jaw we would feed first by mistake. I did not mistake tonight. Tonight was paid lesson, open control, sharp cliff. Sarnai found me without sound and put a cup in my hand. Salt broth, orders as care. Your face is plain, she said. Keep it that way when the road's dust turns. Plain is a shield. Outrageous stays inside where it cannot start funerals. I nodded. Plain had saved a boy's friend by a hand's width of felt pole. Plain was now religion with paste-smelling priests. Naran murmured from below, half asleep, testing rope without knowing he tested. Temur, here, I said down into the dark. Tex paid both directions. If a morning ever came when I could not feel my own blood as mine, I would know the wardrobe had closed from the inside. Tonight the door still opened both ways. Tonight the paw still worked. Tonight Batu's snore and Harka's deliberate quiet and Orun's belonging mutters and the mute girl's unfinished hum nailed me to a living inventory. I thought of Urke's missing fingers and middle barley and blue cloth inside a felt, not on a pole, hooks visible, payments real, pyre postponed by a public takeoff and a fifth law written in almost blood. I did not love Urke. I understood him. Understanding is the coin Middle spends on ugly tools. The hatchet woman, longer lead creaking, spoke from shadow as if night were her counsel. When you take an empire seat, she said, it will try to finish roads, not feuds. Roads through camps, roads through boys. Poor will need new teeth. If, I said, when, she said, and for once did not laugh. Certainty without kindness. Maps again. I filed her and did not argue. Arguing with maps wastes spit. On the rise the stars were hard salt. I spoke toward the east, not loud. I will come to your road when my house is not a map pin and my hands know paw the way they know knife. I will take what tries to take me. I will not gift you my name wet. If a third skin opens, I will nail it with the same laws and the fifth law first. If the laws fail, I will put my wrist in Naran's hand and let a boy drag me back to a name. And if he cannot, I will put my jaw in Harka's reach and my wounds in Sarnai's silence until the dead let go. The night did not bless me. Good. Blessings are cheap. I wanted weight. Weight came as wind smelling of far dung fires and water and dust that might have been carts still rolling under schedule faith. I turned back toward thin quiet. The mare lipped my sleeve and accepted credit toward morning grain. Fair. Batu relieved the lip watch with welts from reed bugs and a joke half-born about marrying a ditch. The joke died when he met my eyes, then resurrected smaller, safer. Friendship limping, walking, present. I told him watch the east seam for intervals that look like boredom. Boredom with lacquer is worse than hunger with tooth string. He straightened. Specific fears keep men sharper than general doom. I lay down in smoke almost nothing and horse smell and iron that never fully leaves. Sleep came as truce. In the truce, Kadan's mouth scar tried to smile at a tribute officer's tall seat, and I tore it off with a wrist bite that woke me enough to taste blood and know it mine. Calendar, border, proof, paw, name, room. I did not smile where even Harka could see. Smiles start rumors. Rumors start hunters. Hunters start funerals. My name had traveled enough without my teeth showing for free. I kept my face plain and my future outrageous and my leashes visible. Second skin taken off in public weather and put back only as tool. Trauma bleed met, bitten, taught into fifth law. Allies almost buried, still breathing. Middle bought expensive. Empire road writing nouns in dust within a hard day's stupid ride. I thought, not claiming, of the intercept that might come, the disciplined officer, the taste of empire skill, the cost of a third door. I did not own those stories yet. I only admitted the pattern that bites back had not finished me, and the road that writes names had not filed me clean, and both facts were temporary as any truce under stars. The hollow liked temporary. I leashed it with names again until it lay down, waiting. I slept as Temur, expensive to myself, necessary to a knot of living names, slower than legend, faster than a coat rack of the dead, and let the grass remember hooves at rest for one more night before it remembered them turning toward whatever jaw opened first along a road that believed it already understood the world. Promise paid, cliff sharp, season unbroken, waiting, patient as clerks and hungry as hollows, and still, for these breaths, held in 2 hands that knew bowstring and buoy rope and mallet treaty and the dull teeth of laws and the new scar of almost, which is the only teacher that leaves you alive enough to hate it properly. I breathed out. I stayed, horizon still waiting. I checked the wrapped tooth string case once and did not open it. Opening would be a conversation with a dead captain I had already dumped on guest grass in front of hard eyes. Conversations can wait until a board is right and a paw is ready and a boy is far from the line of release. The dun stamped near the dark mare, and the 2 horses made a small treaty of ears. Partnership and theft sharing a picket again. Fitting. I paid both with calm hands and no display seat. I did not bow to it. I watched it the way thin camps watch weather, with work ready, with names ready, with paw ready, and with a plain face that refused to become anyone else's finished war.